Are you envious because I am generous? That line in the gospel kind of shows what's on display here. And it's the second deadly sin of envy. Envy is a sadness at another person's good. Gore Vidal, an American novelist, died a few years ago, but he said this about envy. He said, "When a friend of mine succeeds, something in me dies. When a friend of mine succeeds, something in me dies." That is envy on display. The opposite, but it's still related to envy, is Schadenfreude, the Germans call it. Yes, I got to put a little German in there, why not? Schadenfreude, which is a rejoicing in another's failure. Oh, did you hear? Oh, did you hear that? They really messed up. Really? Tell me about it. Yeah, sit right down. Let's talk about it. Oof, that is on display a lot. But these things describe envy, that second deadly sin. And if we look at the deadly sins, this is the second worst of them. The worst is pride, but the second worst is envy. And we see it all throughout the scriptures. Cain is envious of Abel. The brothers of Joseph are envious of Joseph. And you see what happens after that. It's horrible. And even in our literature, we see this all over the place. Brutus and Cassius, envious of Julius Caesar. Our lives themselves are sometimes driven by this engine of envy. And it is a daughter of pride, this deadly sin. But if we truly go to where we're really supposed to focus, is the lively virtue, not the deadly sin we want to avoid. But let's do something. Let's be on the positive side of things. The best defense is a good offense. And so, the lively virtue is admiration. Admiration is something not really well practiced because we don't see it that often. But let's just think for a moment the things we've been given, the gifts, our talents, our energy, our passions, our bodies, our creativity, all of our energy, they're gifts from God. Everything is a gift. What do we have that we have not been given by God? And if that's the case, then the gifts we see in others, the goods that others are enjoying, we should never be envious of them because we know the source. We know it's from God. And we can participate in their good by recognizing their good and saying that's as it should be. You know, that's a good thing. So there's two practical things we can do, in fact, to practice admiration. One is to praise someone that we're envious of. Let's just think for a moment. I'm sure there's one person we can think of, or maybe a family, or something that we kind of see and we want some of that good. We're jealous, we're envious of what they have. Maybe it's a boat, maybe it's a lake lot, maybe it's, a house, a job, maybe a spouse. Whatever that is, let us find a way to praise them somehow. Write them a note, make a phone call, edify their personality by something good that they have done or something that they exhibit that we recognize. Let us praise someone we are envious of. Talk about a challenge. That's right, no softness here. But then the second thing we can do is to stop comparing ourselves to others. Stop comparing. I mean, it's a waste of energy. We all fall into this, so it's okay, but let's stop doing it. In fact, Dante's Divine Comedy, he shows that the envious, those who struggled with envy in their lives, they sit on the edge of the mountain with their eyelids sewn shut because they spent their whole lives looking around, comparing. They're enjoying this, I'm not getting some of that. And they had their eyelids sewn shut on the Mount Purgatory to purify themselves of that. It's interesting too, the deadly sins of envy and all the other deadly sins are in Gilligan's Island. Gilligan's Island's a little before my time, just a little bit before my time, but I know of it and I've seen a little bit. Gilligan's Island has the 7 deadly sins right on display. Mrs. Howell, she had pride. She was the kind of representative of pride. Envy was Mary Ann. She was envious of Ginger. Ginger was lust. Then you've got gluttony, which was the skipper. And then avarice, which was Mr. Howell. He had always the money issues. And then the professor was always angry. He was always angry at Gilligan, if you remember. And then Gilligan was the sin of sloth, because he was always lying around. Obviously, somebody's going to get angry with him. But envy was Mary Ann. Now, with Dante's Divine Comedy, when we're looking at envy and the lively virtue opposite it, with admiration, Mary is also a counterexample of this. Let's just think for a moment, too. In Dante's explication of this, it was the wedding feast at Cana that he used an example. They ran out of wine, this family. And what would some of the envious do? There's a little bit of the scapegoating and kind of, leads into gossip. Did you hear they ran out of wine? What a mess. Oh, my wine was so much better and more bountiful at my wedding. My wedding's better than this one. We would do this. But Mary, what does she do? She goes right to Jesus with someone else's problem. She goes right to Jesus. And then she goes and does something also practical. She goes to the servants and tells the servants, do whatever he tells you. Mary is the good example to watch and follow when we're trying to be good disciples of Christ. Let us practice the virtue of admiration, to praise someone we're envious of, and also to stop comparing ourselves to others. It is a waste of energy. This way we can glorify our Heavenly Father and shine like the stars in the sky and give glory to Him who gave us everything.